Hello everyone, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis and welcome to today's video. Today's going to be my thoughts on where I talk about a topic that's either in the news or that's just caught my interest within the hobby over the past couple of weeks and talk about it at some length. I'll try not to go off on too many tangents. I've tried recording this several times and I've gone off on many tangents doing it, so I'll try and keep this a little bit more on topic without repeating myself too much. I will endeavour to do so anyway. And the topic I want to talk about today is the battle forces, or more broadly, the idea of big value box sets, because big value box sets are something that we're getting more and more used to, and I just want to talk about it, and I really want to push why it's such an important and such a useful thing. So let's start with the battle forces, because it is that time of year. The snow is falling, literally. It has snowed today for the first time in Grenoble, at least at this height level. It's been snowing in the mountains for ages, but it's snowed at ground level for the first time today. It is the countdown to Christmas for those of you who are not stuck with a massive barrier of exams and work and other things that you have to do, which, if you're like me, means that you're a bit jaded on the fact that, oh, everyone's getting ready for Christmas because, I just don't have too much to do. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Not too long a rant to have. Anyway. It is the countdown to Christmas, and thus GW has released its annual big value box set, which this year are known as Battle Forces. They've been known under many names in the past, the Army being the one that I always refer back to. When I started the hobby, they were called Armies. They were £100, they were ridiculously good value, and they still are to this day. Admittedly, what constitutes ridiculously good value has changed somewhat because the price of practically everything has gone up for one reason or another. I'm not going to go into that debate either because I don't know, nor do I want to really poke into it. But they are still very good value box sets for a limited time, for a limited set of armies. And we have 4 for 40k, and we have 4 for Age of Sigmar. Tau, Orcs, Genestealer Cults, Astra Militarum, Stormcast Eternals, Caradron Overlords, Zine Sharkanites, and Grand Alliance Death. Sorry 40k Chaos players, sorry Age of Sigmar Grand Alliance Destruction players, and a general apology to Grand Alliance Death players for the fact that there isn't a faction that we can give you apart from Flesh Eater Cults because nobody pushed Grand Alliance Death. Oh dear, GW, please fix. But it's interesting to note the armies that they are pushing and maybe look at why. So, why are they pushing Stormcast Eternals? Well, one, they're the Age of Sigmar poster boys, but they're not pushing the typical Stormcast Eternals. They're pushing the Vanguard Chamber. If you look at the box, it is entirely a Vanguard Chamber, and then some Gryph-hounds because Gryph-hounds. Why? Blight War. Blight War is the starting box at the moment for Age of Sigmar. It's particularly good for Stormcast Eternals Vanguard Chamber players like myself, because I'm going to be picking up Blight War, and I'm sorely tempted to pick up this Battle Force because it will be really, really useful. And yes, you could argue, well, Stormcast do not need more love right now, and if they're doing it because of Blight War, why aren't they doing it for Nurgle Demons? I don't know, particularly with Death Guard having just come out to be a good push, and with the Chaos Demons Codex literally next month, might have also been another good push. But they haven't, they've just decided to do it for Stormcast, mainly because the other Stormcast armies already have something to push for them. The Start Collecting Stormcast goes with the original AOS starter box, and Blight War now has this Battle Force for a limited run. If you want the Extremis Chamber, then suck it up, you're paying for dragons, deal with it. Caradron Overlords, I'm not 100% as to why these guys are being pushed, because we haven't seen them really get anything else, but I suppose you have to pick armies to do it, and it makes sense to push a army that has new rules and can be pushed. Tzeentch, same thing, and it will also mean that if you are a 40k Chaos player, a Tzeentch player getting ready for the Thousand Suns release, you could probably have a look into it for the Zangors, maybe use the Acolytes as cultists. I don't quite know the scale. You could maybe make something work with that. You have the Grand Alliance Death because, well, token inclusion aside, it's also a cheaper way to pick up a Mortarch in the form of Neferata and the other big stuff. What do they call it? The Morghast, that's the one. And you get that's a really good value box set. It's a very leader heavy box set, but it's a very good box set. On the 40k side, it's actually, I'm surprised because the traditional tradition, yes, that's a phrase I just used, the traditional approach for these big value box sets at the end of the year is Space Marines. Every single time there has been Space Marines to my memory. I could be wrong because I've been in this hobby for quite a few years now. I'm bound to forget something. But it's pretty much always been Space Marines. And we're not getting Space Marines this time. We're getting Guard, Tau, Orcs, these are the cards, like I said earlier. Why are we getting these armies? Not 100%, because it's not all old armies that haven't got a codex and just getting something in chapter approved, so we're going to push them. We've got 3 of those, but we've also got Guard. Why have we got Guard? Not sure. Needed an Imperial Force, didn't want to push Admit because the robots would be too much value. Didn't want to push Space Marines because they're getting all the love in the universe, and they're also getting 2 new codices that month, the Blood Angels and Dark Angels. Okay, fine, let's push Guard. That's fine, although you could have done something else, like maybe... actually, no, if you want an Imperial Force, I think Guard was probably the right way to go. Because I think you also have the Talons of the Emperor box set, if that's still available with the Custodians. I think that's a thing, and if you do want to get the Burning of Prospero, you can do that as well. So it's pretty good time for all of that. And yeah, it's interesting because of the nature of like 3 armies that are in chapter approved, 1 army that isn't, and the fact that we're getting Xenos pushes is something that I really need to point out. Because if you remember back a few weeks ago, in my thoughts on in what is now becoming a bit of a trend, I said, let's have more Xenos released, please, because we need to push diversity. And I said this, and a lot of people argue with me in the comments about it, but I said it, and we're now seeing it, which is really nice. I know it's nothing to do with what I said, but it's a thing. And the fact that they are pushing this is good for the reason of diversity, because I want you to run a hypothetical for me. Imagine you are entering a hobby store for the very first time. You have no idea what Warhammer is, or maybe you've overheard a friend talk about it, or you've talked about it with your mates in the playground or at work, or whatever your social circle is, and you've heard about it, you want to go in and find out what it is, but you only have a limited budget, because you can't be splashing 250 quid, because either you don't have enough pocket money, or because your student loan doesn't stretch that far, or you've got to pay your bills, or whatever it happens to be. There's only so much you can spend, and you go in, and the only value box that is available, and the only thing that's being pushed to you in terms of big shiny new thing that also has value, is the 2 starter boxes. I want you to imagine that for a moment. You have Dark Imperium, and you have Blight War / the AOS starter box. And if you don't have other value box sets to buy, or if you're in the scenario where there are more Space Marines on the wall being pushed for cheap, what are you going to do? Well, to fit your budget, you're going to buy the Space Marines. You might want to look at something else, but that has to wait because you've got a limited budget, so you're going to have to buy the Space Marines, or the Stormcast, or whatever. So, having more options available on the cheap, particularly around this time of year where, you know, kids are looking for Christmas presents and parents are looking for presents to get their kids and all that stuff, it is a good time to be pushing lots of different armies, because it means that people who are looking to start for the first time and just wander into the store looking for something for Christmas, because, you know, that's just what people do, I suppose, and they find these and they're like, so many options for good value, well, all of a sudden, more armies are going to get played. This has to be a good thing, doesn't it? Right? Or am I being an idiot? I don't think I'm being an idiot. Let's go with it. Let's say I'm not being an idiot. If there's more armies being picked up, there's more armies being played. If there's more armies being played, then the meta gets more diverse, both locally and globally. I mean, obviously you can't affect the tournament meta, that's a different microcosm in and of itself. But the general meta for your community gets brighter. Brighter? Wider? Whoops. It gets broader. There's more options for you to play against, and that's good. That's always good, because you get sick of playing the same army as the same army all the time, so you have more options, and that's good. Now, I think I said everything I need to say, particularly on the 40k stuff. I talked about diversity. The Age of Sigmar stuff, admittedly, is not as diverse, because, again, we've got Stormcast being pushed because they're in Blight War. We've not got anything of a destruction in here, which sucks. Death is still not good enough stuff to really justify being anything other than Grand Alliance Death, which also sucks. So they probably could have done something with the AOS stuff, but at the same time there's only so much they can do because they haven't released all the stuff yet. So fine, whatever. Now I want to talk a bit more generally about the concept of the big value box set. And the one I want to start with is Start Collecting. I talked about Start Collecting when Start Collecting was released. I think it was 2 years ago. I can't even remember because I have that much going on that it fell out of my brain what how long ago everything was. But when Start Collecting came out, I made a video talking about Start Collecting and the whole New Year, New Army gimmick. Because it was a gimmick at the time. Or at least I was worried it was going to be a gimmick. It turned out not to be a gimmick. I thought it was going to be the Christmas gimmick for the year with Start Collecting. It wasn't, and it stuck around. And Start Collecting is now pretty much universal. Not quite every army has one, but pretty much. This is fantastic for many, many reasons. For the first point, let's go back to that hypothetical scenario of the person walking into the hobby store for the first time. If every army has a Start Collecting, then they can play pretty much whatever army they want at any time of year. You don't have to wait to Christmas for the big value box set to see what's there. You don't have to pick up the starter box. You have options, and that is fantastic. There are options for every army pretty much in the game in both systems, which is lovely. Good to see. Thank you very much. On top of that, they are actual genuine Start Collectings. They are genuinely things that you would probably get if you're starting an army. I can't speak that for every army because I don't know how you start every army. I mean, the Tyranid one is a little bit wonky. The fact it's got a Broodlord in it and not a Hive Tyrant, but let's let bygones be bygones. So Start Collecting is just great. I talked about it at the time. I was worried it was a gimmick, but it stuck around. It did what it had to do. It's proved itself to me. It's fantastic. You should be using it if you're not already. Good job. But we're not just getting those. Those of you who play 40k may not quite be as familiar with this sort of thing, but in Age of Sigmar right now, there is the Firestorm campaign supplement sort of thing going on, and that means that we have the Armies of the Great Cities. There's 3 box sets. All of them include a little bit of Stormcast for plot reasons, but then you have a big pile of Empire, a big pile of Dark Elves, and a big pile of Dwarves. 3 armies that have had absolutely no sodding love in Age of Sigmar from a lore perspective or from a models perspective, because the dwarves that are in this box, they are the dispossessed, they are not the Caradron Overlords, they are not the Fire Slayers. The humans that are in this box, they're the Free Peoples, they're Empire, and you've got the Black Ark Corsairs, now renamed to the Scourge Privateers. And those are armies that have had absolutely no love from this game system up to this point, so seeing them get some stuff is fantastic for all the reasons I mentioned earlier about diversity. Plus, it also means that old players don't get so jaded because their army's not getting anything, because at least they're getting some idea that, yeah, we still do treat your army with at least a measure of respect. Yeah, have a box set for it. And this means we still want to give your army something. And in 40k, we don't quite have these same sweeping mega box sets that include heroes and monsters and or vehicles, depending on what army system you're playing, and then also included supplementary stuff. Sure, they're not as sweeping, but we've had things like Shadow Force Solak, which was a nice little value box. There was a Tau one that went along with it around the time of Wars of Damocles. These little value boxes that come along from time to time. And we also have those kits of the transport kits. I don't know what their official name is, like the Optimized Pathfinder team, for example, which is a Pathfinder team in a Devilfish, and you pay basically half price for the Devilfish. And those are little nice, they're not huge big value boxes, but they are good value. If you're buying those kits anyway, these are really good value, and they can encourage you to actually pick up those kits for the first time, even if you weren't considering it, because it's just such good damn value. And I really think that sometimes GW just needs to we just need to stop and commend GW for what they've just done. Because, let's face it, I think we can all admit this is an expensive hobby. It is. I don't think any of us can deny it. I mean, my Stormcast army is... I don't even know how much I've spent on my Stormcast army, and I've only bought that in less than 3 months. I don't want to know how much I've spent, but it's probably a lot. And I'm going to be spending a lot more. It's not a cheap hobby to play. You know it. I know it. The man down the street and his mum know it. It's an extremely expensive hobby. So having options to help reduce that cost, again, talk about that, I think I talked about it, that barrier to entry. And the fact that every army has options to pick up on the relatively cheap. Because the worst thing that GW could do is slap a huge financial paywall in the face of people who want to get started. So you want to go rulebook, codex, HQ, troop. Okay, that'll be £150, please. Yeah. That's pretty much what you'd have to pay. Straight up. If you wanted everything. And admittedly, it's not perfect right now because, well, the rulebook is still reasonably expensive. And if you're buying a codex, they're reasonably expensive. The books are the books. But the models barrier to entry has definitely been made cheaper. And the less walls that are in people's way, well, the better. You only need one rulebook for a community once they learn the rules, and 8th edition and Age of Sigmar particularly are very quick to pick up. You only need one rulebook between everybody, and within a couple of weeks you'll be all good to go. And you've obviously got the codices and the indices, which is one thing and another. But the less walls that are in the way, as I say, to new players, the better. And to the old players, the people who are thinking of coming back, but are now looking at the prices and going, you what, mate? I remember the days when my codex was 12 quid, not 30. Yes, I am one of those people. No, I'm still not over. Well, I am over it because we now get full colour hardback as opposed to black and white paperback. So I am over it, but it's a bit stark when you actually stop and do that and look at those two numbers from the beginning to the end. But if you're an old player coming back, or a new player starting out, or someone who's looking to expand into a new army, let's say that they've collected 10,000 points of this army and they want to try something new, well, now they can do it on the relatively cheap, and that is just lovely. And as I said before, it helps with diversity because, yes, you've got the super mega value box set that calls itself the starting box, and you also have these box sets around this time of year that we call the Battleforces, and you also have the things like the Armies of the Great Cities that are there that are big armies on the cheap, but it's the use of things like start collecting. It's the things like the optimized transport kits. Like, they don't have an official title. The something in a transport box. That's what I'll call it. The something in a transport box. You have things like that that don't necessarily look to be huge savings, but when you actually use them and you add it up, you start to realize how much value you're getting out of them if you're buying those particular units. And yes, if you want to specialize, you do pay more for it. Yes, if you want to go into huge points costs at the time that's not suitable when you're not getting a big mega release, yes, that is expensive. I accept that, I admit that, I know that. But it puts less walls in people's way, and it allows people just to gently get some value out of it without having to slap huge savings on it and making it a bit egregious to the point that they can only run it as a 1 month promo like they're doing with these Battleforces. It's very nice that we've got these medium value box sets that are valuable to the customer, but not to the point where they're just obscenely cheap. It's nice to see them because it means that, yeah, you can do things really cheap, or you can do these really expensive, but if you're just an average collector who's just like partway through their collection, just wants to add in a new unit here, or try a new gimmick here, well, here's a box for you that allows you to do it a little bit cheaper. And that's great to see. So that is pretty much my thoughts on the new Battleforces and the big value box set. I know some of you might have been thinking I was doing a review here, but sorry if you thought I was. But I wanted to give my thoughts on the whole concept, in terms of what we're getting at this time of year, and also what GW has been doing very quietly in the background, just slipping in these valuable releases for us because they know it's expensive and so do we. And the less barriers they put in people's way to collecting this hobby, the better this hobby's going to do. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Battleforces and also on the value box set as a whole. But I am just one person. I only have my set of opinions to draw upon, so I want to know what you think in the comments below. So do let me know what you think of the Battleforces, whether you're happy that your army's being pushed, if you're salty that your army's not, whether you've been inspired by the Battleforces to pick up an army for the first time or expand into a gimmick you've never tried before. Let me know what you think, and also with the general idea of the value boxes. Are they a good thing or a bad thing? Could they do more? Should they be doing less because they don't need it? Let us know what you think. I'd be very intrigued to know. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and I will see you all next time. Thank you very much, and goodbye.